Yeah, so I'm a channeler, so I have the ability to connect to people's teams in spirit. So I specifically channel spirit guides. Usually, each person has between 5 to 12 guides on average, and we connect to their messages so that we can be more aligned in our purpose and our highest potential. I was noticing I was saying things and it was coming out of my mouth, but I wasn't putting a lot of thought into what I was saying. It was truly like it was being channeled through me. And that's what I was trying to describe as the flow state, because my readings were very articulate, but I would start saying these specific details and I didn't know why I was saying it. It was just coming. Basically, nobody can take your energy, and your energy field can't be sensitive unless there's some kind of subconscious consent. Even, maybe you're talking to a friend and they're dragging at your energy, you're trying to be helpful. That is still what we classify as an energy drain or energy vampire. So the first thing is just to say, I do not give consent for anybody to take my energy. I had to work really, really hard, but it was almost like spirit was slowing me down. And I started to see beauty in the process instead of just the outcome because I had no other choice.
Hello, beautiful soul. So here I am today, your host, Julia, and I would love us to welcome warmly Gabriella. She is intuitive channeler and life coach. Gabriella, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's a really big pleasure for me to have you here as well, because I was amazed by the work which you are doing in the world. And if you could just briefly talk about it, what you're actually doing, what does it mean to be that intuitive channeler? There is so many themes today around that topic. So I just want to hear that specifically from you.
Yeah, so I'm a channeler, so I have the ability to connect to people's teams in spirit. So I specifically channel spirit guides. Usually, each person has between 5 to 12 guides on average, and we connect to their messages so that we can be more aligned in our purpose and our highest potential. So I do this through both channeling and coaching, and I've been doing it for about 4 years now and coaching for much longer. So it's a great pleasure to do this work.
How did you get there? How did you actually get started? Because I'm pretty sure you didn't just wake up and it happened out of the blue, or it was the case.
No, it's a great question. During COVID, I studied the tarot cards, and about 1 year into doing consistent readings, I noticed that I was seeing images in my mind, which we call clairvoyance, and I started being able to connect to spirit and really hear their messages. And then I just kept practicing, and now it's as easy as if they're sitting in the room with me.
Oh, that's interesting. So you started from tarot pathway and it opened up something in you. You tell me now that you became open to that clairvoyance and it just stimulated something like triggered something in you that you started hearing and seeing something, right? Do I hear it correct?
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
how long did it take you actually, the whole process?
About a year. I was doing tarot readings so frequently during that time. And at first, I was just reading the cards, like their symbols, and just saying the interpretation of the symbols. But I was noticing a certain flow state was coming over me. And then, because I was in that flow state after about a year of doing those readings, eventually I noticed other communication from spirit too.
Wow, wow. So you can use tarot, you tell me, to open up that cosmic connection within you. Do I hear it correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I didn't expect that the tarot would result in that outcome, but I love the tarot cards and I have a deep connection to them really because of what they've offered to my life and how they've helped me connect to spirit in this much deeper way.
How did you get to tarot?
I got to tarot because one day I was in an old bookstore and I found this deck called Titania's Fortune Cards. It's the Lenormand deck, so it's not exactly tarot, but it's similar. And I thought it was very interesting. So I started studying it and then I began giving readings to my friends. And it was quite easy to learn and I got very good feedback from it. So I became obsessed with it. And then I started to learn the tarot cards after.
I'm quite intrigued still. So, were there any symptoms which you started noticing in yourself physically happening when, let's say, you are doing readings, right? And I don't believe the fact that it somehow was like a spark. Were there some kind of symptoms which you started paying attention to you? Let's say you do your readings and then just, oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. So I would love just to understand that pathway from you so that those who are doing tarot readings right now here could pay attention to it as well.
Of course. Yeah, the two things I noticed most is I would start to feel a little bit lightheaded and not dizzy exactly, but quite lightheaded. And the second thing was I was noticing I was saying things and it was coming out of my mouth, but I wasn't putting a lot of thought into what I was saying. It was truly like it was being channeled through me. And that's what I
Mm,
was trying to describe as the flow state, because my readings were very articulate, but I would start saying these specific details and I didn't know why I was saying it. It was just coming. So those were the two first things I began to notice. And then I would say after that, I became much more attuned to energy, feeling tingles, shivers in my body, really feeling other people's energy as well. And that was very helpful too, that I knew something was happening on a larger scale.
mhm. I can completely relate to that because once you start channeling, in fact, there is this interesting thing which is happening to all the channelers. What I observe in everyone whom I'm talking to about this topic is that gap. So there is here you, and then you kind of like get aligned with that new energy passing through you. But there is that, I would say, that craziness gap when you are not sure if you are crazy or not at that moment. So I just
Yeah.
want to ask you specifically, how did you overcome that breach, that gap, so that you would still stay aligned with this spirit passing through you, but do not go backwards thinking that you are nuts?
Yeah. That's a very good question. Honestly, for me, I had a decent sense of what was happening because I had been studying different spiritual topics. So I had some understanding that my channel was opening. So I never thought, oh, I'm going
Mhm.
crazy. However, there was a time period for me where it was hard to turn my channel off, meaning that when I went into the grocery store, I was receiving messages for everyone, and I really did not want that. And at that time, I had to really do a lot of energetic protection work and also tell my spirit guides, look, I'm sorry, but I'm happy to be a channeler, but I don't want to be completely open all the time. So
Mhm.
that for me was the biggest struggle. I also have struggled with fatigue because of all of the information that comes through. But
Mhm.
over time, I've learned like some specific practices and techniques just to protect my aura, balance my energy field, and also receive more energy cleansing too.
That's very interesting. So, if you could share maybe those practices and techniques with us, because I think our audience may be very open to that, and many of ours, like who are hearing, like right now, ours, and I can relate to this sometimes when something is passing through me. I'm just like, gosh, I would love to have something which will help me to actually cleanse my aura, right? So especially when we become too sensitive to that energy shift within us when we see others. All right. So how do you maintain that balance within you? Which kind of practices you use, which you already mentioned you use? So if you could maybe open a bit of window
Yeah,
here.
of course. Yeah, so I will say some are very simple, and then some are advanced spiritual techniques where I had to learn from specific healers, and those are very advanced. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of energy work to understand those. But I'll talk about the more simple ones first. So basically nobody can take your energy, and your energy field can't be sensitive unless there's some kind of subconscious consent. Even, maybe you're talking to a friend and they're dragging at your energy, you're trying to be helpful. That is still what we classify as an energy drain or energy vampire. So the first thing is just to say, I do not give consent for anybody to take my energy. And I say that all the time before I go to the grocery store, before I go into a concert or any crowded space. The second thing is, as many people usually know, visualizing white light or gold light around the body can really help, and really visualizing that powerful aura that will immediately bring more light to you. So it will keep you
Mm.
more protected. And then there are some more reactionary techniques where you feel like something has come in to your energy field and you need to cleanse. That for me would be taking a shower or immersing
Oh,
yourself in water,
yes.
or just movement, like going on a run, doing hot yoga, sitting in the sauna, something that will cleanse out the toxins, because I think of it as energetic residue. So we just want to cleanse that out.
Yes, cleansing it physically out. That's very
Yes,
important. I remember when I was
yes,
going to all the psychic fairs, and I just had that need on a physical level to go just to the sauna to cleanse it out really for everything
yeah,
from me, because there were so many energies around and you can bump into everyone basically there.
totally.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy. It really is, especially if you're receiving information from above as well as the 3D plane. It's a lot of energy, and so it
Yes.
requires a lot of cleansing. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And regarding this technique which you mentioned, that I do not give consent, this is kind of like formed in a negative way. Is it okay that it's stated that way? I mean, when we speak to the universe, we ideally want to speak in the affirmative statement and not in the with these not, because what I noticed in my example, like whenever I say something with not, I attract the opposite.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about that. So is it always working for you with this specific like statement with not? I do not give consent?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's up to the person. It's kind of what they talk about in manifestation techniques too. Like you're supposed to say, I am wealthy instead of I am not in debt.
Mhm.
For me personally, I don't really mind. I think that if my intention behind it is strong, it still works. And it has always worked for me too. For me, saying I do not give consent is just a very powerful statement. Like, I'm not going to let anybody mess with me. I'm
I
too
love
strong
it.
for that. Yeah. But I
I
think it
love it.
depends on the person. Yeah.
Because you pay attention more even to the intention within you than to
Yeah.
the physical expression of it. So you basically work more with the etheric body of yours than
Hmm.
with the physical representation, which is speech here. Do I understand it correct?
Yes, it's true. Exactly. Yes, for
Mhm.
me, everything is energy, and words are such a small part of it that it's almost an afterthought, honestly. I think words are very important, but it's more the vibration behind it. So,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes, this is much more powerful. Yeah, it's all what I'm saying here and there to people whom I meet and who are open to that. It's one of the laws, right, which is opened already in the quantum physics, which is energy. It is all about mass multiplied by speed of light quadrant, right? So Albert Einstein
Hmm.
has already proved it scientifically, thanks God. So energy is
Yeah,
behind everything. So
totally.
that
It
we
is.
could, yeah, we could operate even with these terms and not just seem to be nuts here.
Totally. Yes, everything is energy.
Mm,
Absolutely everything.
yes. So, do you do any specific energy healing work? I mean, because if you become a channel, I know for sure that it's all about how to restore, to rebalance your energy. So, is there some, let's say you have a session with a client, and is there something what you do so that to bring yourself back to who you are?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Um, yeah, so I am a Reiki practitioner, so I do give myself Reiki every single day. And I also do something I like to call opening and closing my channel. So at the beginning of every session with a client, I say a specific phrase that I created to connect to spirit guides and angels and loved ones from above. And then at the end of the session, I will close after the client is off the phone. And that for me just closes the energy portal and the energy connection between me and the client, as well as their team of guides. And
Mm.
I've noticed if I don't do that, I will continue to get channeled messages for all of my different clients, and my world will start to become very noisy. So it is a necessity for me.
Mm. That is interesting. When you do that channeling, are you conscious, or it's kind of like something which is passing through you and you're not conscious in the moment?
I'm conscious, but it's definitely different from my normal state. And the reason is because I can literally feel my energy going up. I feel myself getting lightheaded. I often have to close my eyes because I see more visually in my mind's eye. So distractions become very distracting, like any noises. So I have to set my space up in a certain way to make sure I can really channel and drop in and get accuracy of messages. But also, it's just practice. I've been doing it for years, so now it's quite easy for me. Whereas at the beginning, it took some time.
How do you set up your sacred space?
Yeah, I have a set of sprays that I use. So I'll just sit down, I'll light a candle, I'll invite spirit in, and then usually I'll use my energy cleansing sprays. And I also have my sage and my Palo Santo. And this to me is just activating. It's like inviting in spirit. I'll open my channel, say the phrase I always say, and then do the client work. So, yeah.
Mhm. Do you still work with the tarot cards?
I do, but rarely, not because I don't love them, but because at a certain point it started to feel like another distraction because I
Mm.
had to focus very hard on what exactly Spirit was saying to really understand the message clearly. So looking at something while I'm doing that was taking me out of the channeling. And so it
Mhm.
started to feel like a prop that I didn't necessarily need. But I do love the tarot, and I still teach classes on tarot, so it's always going to be a love of mine.
Mhm. Mhm. I have that interesting realization as well that when you go to a certain level of expertise with tarot, it's and I'm in tarot for more than 10 years myself, you always want to get deeper. And if you just stay on the same level, basically, and just use the same things, you don't really develop. You kind of like be stagnant, right? So
Yeah.
just the same like in the corporate job, if you do the same thing again and again. So what I see with many here who are going seriously with this tool, just like you, that's a very interesting case when it
Hmm.
opened up that channeling capability in you, that cosmic connection, in fact, they start utilizing it in a much more exquisite, subtle, intricate levels. So
Yes.
working, combining it, making like that eclectic weaving. So
Yeah,
yeah, and
absolutely.
that's a really
Yeah,
interesting thing to observe.
it
Okay.
is. Well, and the tarot is beautiful. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, so I did pick a card readings on YouTube for years. And the thing I loved about using the tarot was there's so many different decks and artistic interpretations of the cards. And that also can keep it very exciting because it's almost the relationship between you, the person you're reading for, and then the artist that wove their
Yes,
energy into the deck too.
yes.
Yeah.
Because it's in fact like it's a really connection to cosmos, what is happening through art. I
Hmm.
see how our current system of education, if we look at it, it does everything so that we are not connected to art. And we
Yeah,
just
totally. Yeah.
memorize stuff. And then I see clients of mine who come to me and they try to memorize keywords of Torah.
Yeah.
Because we
Right.
need to get connected to here, right? This is the trap which was in fact imposed on us through our education when we had to memorize so much stuff since the age of 7 or earlier. It's like it's a real trap here in this matrix.
Yeah, it keeps us in the mind instead of in the heart. And in my experience, being too much in the mind or in the ego is what disconnects us from our true
Yes,
nature, our
yes,
soul. Yeah.
yes. And then we start trying to connect to cosmos again, get back, because it's basically feeling like a desert of materialism here already. And then we start connecting, right? Searching for those flows of abundance, because here everything feels so limited. Correct me if I'm
Yes.
wrong. And then we keep using the same wiring, which we were taught since childhood. And there is no our fault there. It's how we were taught, in fact.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Mm.
That's interesting you're talking about this. It's something I work on in my coaching groups. I talk about how when we're young, up until we're 7, everything just comes in and we don't really have a filter to cancel anything out. So all of those things become our subconscious beliefs, especially if someone's dealing with a scarcity mindset or feeling
Yeah.
abandoned. It gets ingrained in us, and then
Feels
those
so
mental
unfair, yeah?
loops.
Just feels
It
so
is
unfair. We just
unfair.
like come in here like sponges, we take everything in, and then you have to deal with that crap your whole life, you know?
Yes, and it takes a lot of work to release those old thought patterns. It really does. That's for my journey. That's been something that has taken a lot of work.
Mm.
So yes, but it's worth it. It helps.
Yes. So what was that trigger for you to get to that level of awareness that, hey, I have to get started now. I just have to, because everyone has a beautiful story around it. And I just want to understand your story.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, things in my life were not going well at a certain point because I was working at a startup and I was working 14 hours a day. I was super burned out. And my health wasn't doing very well. I had a lot of gut issues at that time, and I was so tired. And it was interesting because although I was getting money and getting recognized at work, I wasn't really happy inside. And I just thought that that was what I was meant to do. So I hadn't really questioned it. But I did start to think to myself, something doesn't feel right. And at that time, coincidentally, or it's a spiritual synchronicity, I met a mentor who was really powerful for me. And she helped me understand how everything in my life at the time was like entrapping me and basically suffusing my spirit. The one thing I did have was I had just started my YouTube channel with my tarot readings, and that was going really well, and that felt really bright and joyful. So I started focusing more of my attention on that. And then I worked with a mentor and did a lot of deep healing. And I started to really rewire those old, unhelpful beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting crossover, basically, which you came through, because in fact, we all have our individual stories here. But all these stories, they have these like what happened here, and then there was some enlightenment, like a blitz. There is the tower
Yeah.
card, right? And then
Yes.
we actually come to the point that, hey,
Yeah.
this blitz happened, we need to do something around it, you know. So our whole
Right.
life is crashing. And I have so
Mhm.
many clients who are saying to me, you know, I'm afraid of this tower, but I say, hey, it is an amazing card. It's just
Mhm. It
something
is.
that enlightenment is coming into your life.
It is, yes. It's in some ways it's one of the best cards, even though a lot of people don't like to see it, but it always leads to the highest spiritual ascension. And it always
Yeah.
leads to a change that is needed. So yeah, that was my tower moment. I was super burned
Mm.
out and wasn't really listening to myself and what my soul wanted, and then I had no choice but to
Mm.
change.
So it's basically all ships burned down.
Everything burned down. I left the relationship I was in at the time. I moved across the country. I left my job. Everything changed. It was a true tower moment in every aspect of my life.
I see the patterns. I see the patterns which you are going through with many whom I've interviewed already, and with the patterns of my life, honestly. And I can tell you, even if we have those different stories, but the patterns are the same, the life starts crumbling, literally crumbling. And we are so afraid of it. But the interesting thing is that after this card, the star follows.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah,
that is a
so
really,
interesting.
really cool thing about this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. It's true. The tarot is a beautiful journey, and it's really just having the faith to take the next step, even though it's so scary. But you don't want to stay in the tower forever
Mm.
either. That is
Yes,
also a mistake.
correct. Correct. Because even if channel is coming after that, you need to hold yourself not to get to craziness mode. So that
Yes.
you would not get backwards to that devil. You know?
Right. Right.
Because
Yeah.
before the tower, there is this guy sitting there torturing everyone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't want to be in the energy of entrapment for
Yes,
so long. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
So it's actually, I've been contemplating about it, that the easiest way to even learn the major arcana, by the way, is when we take the pathway of the Fool and we split it into his road of 22 cards, into those small roads. And the road which starts from the star, which is following this card, then this road actually is all about enlightenment if we see it. So one
Yep.
by one, how we go through that process is just showing us how we actually get reunited back to our cosmos, to where we
Mhm.
came from, right? Just like,
Yeah.
yeah, if we're speaking about this, what is your card today, you think, in that enlightenment pathway?
Like what card am I in currently?
Yes, because in that pathway, the cards are, just let me remind you, it's the star, the moon, the sun, and then judgment and the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, the journey from the start to the world is a fantastic journey. I believe that I am in judgment right now.
Mm. Why is that so?
I think that I'm at a point in my life where I have been fulfilling my purpose and my mission, and now there's like a even higher calling, which is starting to move through me. So that's a little bit of space between judgment and the world. Like not everything is complete yet. I haven't figured everything out in a spiritual sense, but it feels like there's a destiny element to where I am right now. And the funny thing is I don't know all the answers about how my life will continue to transform, but I feel I've had the star and I've had the moon and I've also had the sun too. So yeah, I think I'm around there.
Oh, that's very interesting that you mentioned it, because in fact, judgment has two aspects in it, and this positive aspect, it's even called, like, one of the keywords is enlightenment. So it's kind of like that enlightenment, right? So illuminated consciousness here, because it's just so amazing what we as humans can do here once we illuminate all this stuff here, once we literally get back to the basics. Because, I started doing some kind of um, practices as well. And I realized I cannot really 100%, and I don't want to illuminate all about my physical body. Once I started doing it with my meditations, and I'm meditating currently 2-3 hours per day, I realized that once I go deeper into that practice, like illuminating all from in here back to here, the body starts hurting, it's crumbling like crazy. I don't know, do you have something similar in your practices? If you ever experienced it? Because I just like feel like, oh, I would better not go there. I would better not mess up with this saddle. I don't know, it's just
Yeah.
like sometimes I share it and I would love to hear if you ever went through something like this, being like, we always like, I wanted more, 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 and I wanted more to be conscious, like about my body, how processes are happening there. And it's just like, Yulia, you better stop here. You better stop. There is a reason why
Yeah,
we're not conscious about many things.
right. It's true. There's always divine timing. And I think that this happens when we're receiving so much energy, especially in deep meditation, that one, we become more conscious of what's happening within us. But two, we're also pulling a lot of energy into our body. And sometimes I think of it like a light bulb that bursts. And there's a certain level of like energetic capacity that we have. And if we blow ourselves out, we have to
Yeah.
be very careful about that too.
Yes. Yes,
But
I have the same sensation because I just like started already. Oh God, I just like instill in me just right codes. I
right,
don't freaking know anything. I'm just giving myself all to you, to your guidance. Just instill the right codes to me, just the right for this, because I freaking don't know anything about this. And that code, which we have all in American society here, more, is all not always better. It's not always
no,
better,
it's
correct me
definitely
if I'm
not.
wrong.
Well, that's definitely true, especially when it comes to energy.
Mhm.
Before I was referring to some very advanced spiritual techniques that I had to learn, the reason that they're very advanced and I don't share those ones is because when people use them, they can blow out their system. It's too much energy at once. Their system doesn't have capacity. It actually has a reverse effect than
Yes,
what we're looking for, which is to heal. So, yes, I mean, this is not to make anyone afraid of meditating because meditating is a beautiful practice, but yes, I think it's just there is a certain amount of attunement required, and as you build up to it, your body can take more energy,
I
but it
love it.
takes time.
Yeah. There is a
Yeah.
card which is called temperance. So
Hmm.
if we look at the temperance, right, and what do we see in the head? So how he's standing, it's like the descended angel, in fact, but he's like pouring the water, pouring Sagittarius, by the way. So
Yeah.
pouring the water from one chalice to another, but not even one single drop is crossing the line here, is not in here. It's just all about that balance, how he's standing with one foot, right? How even
Hmm.
this stone after stone, this pile is presented here. I mean, like it's all about finding that balance, right? So that
Absolutely.
we would not just burn ourselves down to ashes.
Right. Yes, sometimes our human mind or our egoic mind will want to go so fast. We have
Mhm.
that want for instant gratification, but it's not always what's best for us.
Yes, yes. So how did you get to that understanding that actually instant gratification and more is not always good? Because this is basically what I see. We are all victims of that wiring on on some level. So we were instilled with this, with all the society constraints here, with all the like debris here. Like it's like one very thick matrix about these beliefs starting from very early ages. So I see many are going to that understanding. What was your story around it?
Yeah, the truth is, I look at my life and I don't think I've had much instant gratification other than ordering my packages on Amazon. Everything that I've
That's
had
the
to
devil.
do, it is, it is, it's true. Everything I've had to do has required a lot of effort, and I actually think it's some past life energy still moving through me that it's required a lot of intention, a lot of effort. But the good thing about this is that it has paced me. So I never got anything really fast. I had to work really, really hard, but it was almost like spirit was slowing me down. And I started to see beauty in the process instead of just the outcome because I had no other choice. And my perspective on this is if you can learn to just appreciate the process and the present moment, you actually inherit more gifts and more of a
Yes.
connection to
And
spirit,
speaking
the
about
universe.
Amazon, it's just like a big gift from another perspective because today, if we look at it, Amazon made it possible for us to receive everything so easily. We could not even imagine, in fact, like what is possible today. So it's all having these two sides, and it depends on how we look at it. Again, temperance, because some people may say, hey, I will not buy from Amazon or I will not use AI. But all this
Yeah.
has gifts in it from another perspective. Again, temperance, right? So we come
Yeah.
back to the same thing.
It's the integration. Same
Mhm.
with medicine, using Eastern and Western medicine or integrating. It's like the yin and the yang. I think there's a lot of healthy energy and balance.
Yes, yes. So literally honoring and nurturing all what we have today. I just feel like how we as humanity, we come back to that nurturing aspect in us, but we really need to come back through not hiding the eyes, like closing the eyes from the technology and all the goodies which we have already today, but together with it, but in a much more conscious way. You elaborate as well, just your vision on that?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating topic. I think AI is allowing us to receive information very quickly, which has a lot of benefits, so we can be more progressive in some ways. I also perceive that this will allow us to contact other beings from other planets, and that this is the reason why it's been brought to Earth in such a fast way that eventually there will be some kind of interdimensional communication, which is not just channeling, but is also technological. So, in
Mhm.
that respect, I think it's good. And then I think the other thing is that people do still need to seek what is real, and that nothing can really replace human connection. It's
That
the
is
both.
correct. Yes, and COVID actually showed it so brilliantly well, because do you see like how everyone were so thirsty for that real connection? And we can see
Yeah.
how people appreciate it actually today.
It's true. It's true. And we had to learn that lesson as a collective, and it was very hard to learn. But now that we know the value of human connection, I feel we do appreciate it much more.
Yes, and this power of appreciation brings us back to that abundance flow. I know that you actually are teaching that abundance flow. We talked about it a bit before. So could you maybe tell us all here what are the main principles, in fact, of abundance flow? Because that is like I feel deep inside that when you get to that more spiritual aspect of you, this must happen naturally, right? But when we are on the pathway, when we start opening up, like in that cocoon, right? Like chrysalis, when the how to say, the caterpillar gets to the butterfly, there is this cocoon, like chaos there in between. So we are when we are in that cocoon or chrysalis, like they call it chrysalis on scientific terms. So when we are in that thing, chaotic thing, we may not experience still abundance, and we just like, hey, I'm on the pathway, but I don't understand. I'm a good being. Why there is still no abundance? I know one thing still, that when we are like when everything, and you mentioned somehow it happened in your story, you mentioned somehow, but it's not just synchronicity, it's mathematically exact. So my question to you, what are those formulas for abundance? Because I know that you figured them out. So maybe some principles, which you can list here for all of us, so that we could follow maybe a step by step and just, hey, I'm spiritual and I want to be there. If I do that, my situation will get better.
Yeah, great question. The first thing that comes to mind is just the concept of being open. So there's a theory that there's a lot of abundant energy being sent to us all the time, but some of us have more resistance to that flow than others. So,
Mhm.
like we were talking about, becoming aware of where you might have some resistance and just trying to open a little bit more. And my perspective is if you're trying to do everything by yourself, then that's not going to be the best way to go about life. So asking for help from other people, but also from spirit, is just a very
Mhm.
helpful thing to start practicing daily. Before I write anything, before I post on social media, before I work with a client, for 1 second, I just say, Spirit, please be with me, please move through me. and that energy is felt, and that creates more abundance. So even if you're not a channeler, it's just inviting a higher level of energy in so that you're not using all of your own personal energy for everything that you're coming across. Yeah.
Okay, so that's principle number one. Is there something else?
There's there's always more. There's so much. I think abundance mindset is also shifting to this perspective of good things are happening for me all the
Mm.
time. There's good things happening that I might not be able to see right
Oh,
now,
they
but
are
I'm
on
going
the
to
go too.
trust.
They are on the go
Yeah,
too.
yeah, or they're coming. They're on the way. So yes, it's being grateful, maybe writing in a gratitude journal every day. These are very simple practices, but what it's doing is it's sending a signal out to the universe of
Mm.
I deserve good things, I am worthy of good things, I expect good
Mm.
things, and that does attract it to your energy field like a magnet. So that
Yes,
too.
I actually noticed I started doing in my YouTube channel as well for my clients. They asked me about it actually. These card readings, one card readings with that empowering perspectives, just like the message, which can lift them up. And I was like, okay, it's just like I will do it for you. And then I noticed, even like privately when I work with people, if you just try to lift them up, it's not about fortune telling, all this thing. You kind of like can module your future. Like
Hmm.
you can
Absolutely.
literally model the future to what you want to embed through that abundance flow.
It's true. It's true. And that's why I like to describe it as multiple timelines. I believe there are multiple parallel possibilities that can happen for us. And so I work with spirit so that we can get onto what I call the highest timeline, the one that's most in
Mm.
alignment and most purposeful.
Mm. That word as alignment is really powerful. I keep hearing it from many today, and it has that tremendously beautiful frequency in it when we even spell it like alignment. It's like a spell, literally, when
Yeah.
we say that. And it's just, how I feel like all my limbs are just like opening up to this cosmos, and I'm doing yoga actually, Ashtanga yoga, and I noticed how every asana, like literally every asana, it's that alignment. It's not the physical set of exercises. I think you can relate to that. And
Yeah.
then you're like really that antenna, which
Hmm.
transfers certain alignment with cosmos. But I figured it. I figured why. Because I use my hands very actively there, and I use my
Mm.
feet. It's just like working for me. So, and I just talked about it to my husband, and I encouraged him to do the same, like paying attention to the hands. It's just like opening up like that flower. So you can do so much stuff with your limbs connecting to these
Yeah.
universe. And we are naturally good in that with that dancing. Right? I'm just like,
Yes.
gosh, that's what's
Hmm.
happening there.
It's true. Yeah, and the beautiful thing is your hands move energy, they invite energy in, they can also push it out. The hands are very purposeful in
Yeah,
how we use them. Yeah,
yeah.
it can create a block or it can create a flow of
Hmm.
abundance. So, yeah, and it's
Yeah.
similar to the Kundalini energy as well. Often that's
Hmm.
kind of what we're channeling when we're
Yeah.
in that flow.
All these mantras, all these kind of like mudra stuff. It's
Yep.
it's so interconnected with that. And when I was in India as well, have you been there in India?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
so you probably were in certain ashrams and were just like indulging into that experience, right? So do you remember how they use all the time either some kind of ecstatic dancing? So we call it ecstatic dance in the West, but they call it some trance
yeah.
dance or connection to whatever. They
Yeah,
switch
it
off the
works.
light and then
Yeah.
do you
Yeah, it
remember
certainly works.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I even dance I think of it kind of like shamanic dancing. Like I give gratitude to the earth, the sun, the sky, all of the above, but similar practice to connect to spirit and Mother Nature. And it really
Oh,
works.
so when have you been introduced to these shamanic practices?
Yes, I started studying power animals about 4 years ago and doing shamanic journeys. First, just
Joyce.
through Yeah, I love it. It's great. First, I just read this book. It was called The Beginner's Guide to Shamanic Journeying, and I practiced it like religiously. And
Mm,
it was beautiful because I got so many messages from my power animal and my helping spirits, as we call them, that I couldn't have gotten in my normal 3D life. And I'm going to do a shamanic training now in Peru in 2025.
oh, so you with your people, you will do the shamanic training, you will be leading the course?
No, I'm actually learning from the
Oh,
shamans, like the ancient shamans in Peru. So they don't speak English, they live
yes.
in the mountains. So I
Grandero.
want to really, yeah, want to really go to the root and learn the
Mm-hmm.
original.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really looking forward
Yeah.
to that. But yeah, but I've been doing some shamanic healing. Some came to me intuitively, honestly. Like it's like kind of like light language, and so I use it in my healing and I notice a difference. But that was, of course, because my channel was open.
I love it because I'm just coming myself from Siberia initially, and this is a
Mm,
really strong shamanic based land, so it's
yeah.
so connected to me when you just talk about it. And the only land where I felt like home, honestly, was in Peru. When I just like
Yeah.
I just felt it. And she's like, gosh,
Yeah.
Peru and then Siberia, it's so the vibrations, they are so
Mm,
beautiful there. And both lands are not easy to live in, honestly. It's just like it's not easy to be there physically, but
right. Hmm.
it's just tremendous power in those two lands. And I still remember how I was surrounded by shamans in my childhood, and just
Wow.
they could really say already who you can be, your potential, but they never limited you with that. But they could just say to you, they saw it. And then what, like the people, my family even, we never used medications. It was not
Hmm.
supposed to be like that conventional medicine. We always used some kind of medicine from Mother Nature. And I
Yeah,
will not
beautiful.
really spread too much about this. There is crazy stuff there, what we were doing. I mean, from perspective, which kind of stuff, because animals are really pure and plants are
Hmm.
so pure and we can restore. There is a reason why shamans are working with animals and plants so much, because with plants we
Yeah.
restore literally our whole this thing, our etheric body, which is mainly reflected in our
Yeah.
body hair, right? So
Hmm. Yeah.
but with the animal energy, you can restore your astral body and anything around your nervous, degenerative nervous things, meaning that they are so pure, just presence of it, being around them. Like we started
Yeah.
doing horse riding with my husband. I don't know,
Yeah.
did you touch horses?
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Yeah,
yeah.
there's so I
Did
just went
you
horse
ride them?
riding. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. So you can relate to that.
Yeah, of course. They're so powerful. They're so
They
conscious.
so pure, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
You know
I
what
love them.
fascinated me? When I
Mm.
figured out that the eyes of horses have much more blood than our eyes. It's just like,
Really?
yeah. It's just like, gosh, there is something in that. And then look how we as women, we are so connected to blood. It's just like we talk
Yeah.
so much here about nerves, nerves. But I was just like, I'm thinking there is so much around blood.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's our life force, it's a very powerful part of us, and there's so
Did
much
you work with
to
your
say
blood?
about that. When I was working with my mentor, she did lead us through a lot of like womb ceremonies, yoni steaming, like those types of practices. I haven't carried it forth as much as I could have, so there is another area for me to explore. But certainly in my network of healers, I know a lot of people that are very intimate working with their blood and also do like red tent ceremonies.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because
It's
I'm
quite
just,
common here in San Diego. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's quite empowering. Hopefully, it's
It
done in
is.
the discerning, like right direction, because there may be
Yeah.
lots of creepy stuff as well happening there. So it's just like,
Yeah, it's true.
hopefully,
You
it's
have
done
to use discernment.
righteously.
Always. Yeah. You have to use discernment always. It's true in every industry. I've seen there's there's purity and there's also some questionable stuff going on. But yeah, but my core network of healers out here is so beautiful. I'm so grateful for them because they truly changed my life.
Mm. So, since you started that pathway of a channeler, right,
Hmm.
and a life coach, um, I would want just to get that confirmation, in fact, from you. Did you ever have any thought coming back?
Like of returning to my former life? Yeah, of course. So many times. But this was always coming from my ego. And it was
Mhm.
always about money and scarcity and maybe even reputation. And it was going back to those old thought patterns because I was raised in this kind of strict way where I was just expected to be very corporate. So the fact that I left my corporate job altogether was a huge leap for me. It
Oh, I can
required
imagine.
working through a lot of fear, and I really had to use my spiritual resources and faith in order to get through that. But you know what I noticed is spirit won't let you go back if you're not meant to go back. So, yeah, of course, there were times in the past where I applied to corporate jobs and things like that, but I never got any of them. I never even interviewed because spirit was like, nope, you're meant to keep doing this work. And that was only maybe two times, but every time that I've just kept leaning in and trusting and having faith and going within and connecting deeper, then my life has transformed in miraculous ways. And so
Mhm.
it really just comes down to, is it fear that you're choosing or love? And at this point, after years of surrendering, I just know I have to choose love. That's my only option. And that's the one that's truly in alignment.
I love it. I love it. It's so much going in alignment with everything what was said by many whom I interviewed before. So much going in alignment with my life, honestly. It means only one thing. If you receive the same patterns again and again from people who were never connected before to each other, it means only one thing. There is truth around it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're working in this amazing collective consciousness. And so we do see these patterns, and it's just
Mhm.
fascinating. But our world is evolving, and that's really nice to see.
Yes, there is so much light coming, in fact. So there is hope for absolutely every one of us. There is absolutely lots of hope.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, and I feel it daily, and that's just so beautiful.
So if we summarize in 3 words, let's say, which kind of advice you would give to absolutely everyone who is listening to us right now, so that you just feel it's the right one. It's just the right one.
Yeah, I mean, the three words I would say are trust, faith, and integrity. And I believe that if you just really build your life and you guide yourself around those three things, trust, faith, integrity, then you can never go wrong, whether it be
I
choosing
love it.
your mentor, your teacher, or just trusting yourself.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Gabriella. It was such an amazing talk. I wish I could talk with you for ages. Unfortunately, our time here is limited, like everything in this matrix. But guys, everyone who listens to it, you will have it in your recording. You will have all the links about this wonderful lady. And I hope that we will meet each other again. Thank you, Gabriella.
Thank you. Thank you so much.